So we are joined by Barry Moore, who is the chairman of the Regional Mobility Authority. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Think Brazos. And today we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some things that are high on your priorities for this season. If not your name, your organization keeps popping up in some of these interviews we've been doing. And so we wanted to delve a little bit more into what the Regional Mobility Authority is. Again, thank you so much for coming on. And the first thing I wanted to hear a little bit about, though, is your background. I was doing a little bit of research and found that you studied agronomy, right?
I did, yeah.
At A&M,
At A&M,
right?
correct, yep.
How did you make the leap from, studying crops or whatever it is that you do, all the way over to transportation and the RMA?
It's been a circuitous route. After A&M, I was actually a youth pastor for a number of years, and really enjoyed that. But there was a season for that, and the season kind of came to an end, and got into commercial real estate, which is what allowed me to come back to Bryan College Station. I was in the Houston area.
Okay.
Family's from Bryan. Was here as a kid. We moved around a bunch, but this has always been, Bryan College Station has always been home. And so in 2014, got the opportunity through my real estate business to come back to town, and was a really easy decision for us. Mm-hmm. Pretty quickly got involved in local service. Served on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Oh, right.
In City of College Station. Served 2 years on the City Council in the City of College Station. And then kind of felt like I might be okay being done with that type of community service until I got the call from the governor's office, and we'll probably talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But the chairman of the RMA, the Regional Mobility Authority, is appointed by the governor, and so got a call from his office asking if this was something I'd be interested in doing. And
when was that?
That was early 2021 when that call came in. So I was appointed as chairperson in the last legislative session. And in the spring, and then have been serving for a little over a year. Learning a lot, and don't have a huge transportation background, but I'm fortunate that on our board I'm surrounded with a ton of expertise.
Yeah, I think I can see the connection a little bit more between, especially the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. You probably ran into a lot of transportation-related things at the city level as well, right? Did any of those kind of inform some of your mindset in running this authority?
What I think it did more than anything is, when you serve on council and you kind of serve you're serving the whole city, it helps you get out of maybe your own, micro environment, your own neighborhood, and understand the needs that are facing other neighborhoods and other parts of the community. Because of the way that the cities of Bryan and College Station are oriented, and they work together within the county, and being kind of the bulk of the county, you really start to pay attention to transportation needs in Bryan, or transportation needs in unincorporated areas of the county. So yeah, absolutely. It certainly broadened my view on transportation in the area, and a number of other things as well. Okay,
so the RMA, the Regional Mobility Authority, I told you last week, I think when we met, that honestly, when I first heard that, I was thinking those green buses that drive up and down Texas Avenue and that kind of stuff. You told me that's not correct. Can you speak a little more of what this organization is and how you think it helps?
Sure. Yeah. So the RMA is short for Regional Mobility Authority. There's a number of RMAs across the state of Texas. It is in the short version, it's a political subdivision. That was created by the Texas Transportation Commission and the Texas Legislature to help communities help themselves and focus on traffic and mobility and congestion issues, really all transportation issues, all mobility issues in their communities. So, so call it a TxDOT district within a district, and there are a number of TxDOT districts across the state. We in Bryan College Station, Brazos County is in the Bryan TxDOT district,
right?
Which would make most people think that Bryan College Station is the hub, the center, the most important, most populated part of the district. And that's not necessarily true. Our district it's bordered on the east by the Lufkin district, to give you an idea of how far east the district goes. Yeah. So I-45, Huntsville, Madisonville, all falls into the Bryan district. Wow. So a lot of TxDOT's funds go to work on I-45, which is a major interstate through the district. So what the RMA allows us to do is have a little bit more of a local focus on transportation. Okay. So we work really closely with TxDOT, but the projects that the RMA works on are only in Brazos County. Brazos County is the only county a part of the RMA. I got you. So again, we can focus our energy on mobility, transportation, congestion issues within Brazos County only. You mentioned the Brazos Transit District buses. So transit in public transportation can fall under the purview of the RMA. Okay. As well as pedestrian facilities, roadways, obviously, bicycle facilities, airports. All of these things we can play a part in the future of all of these things. So you weren't that far off.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, so you've kind of talked, I guess, higher level as far as what you do, but what's some on the ground? I know y'all are very new, but what is, I guess, some of the main goals that you're hoping to accomplish in the next few years through this mobility authority, like real projects, the things that people watching would be like, oh, that makes sense to me. Can you speak a little more on some of those?
Absolutely. I'll start big picture and then I'll kind of go there. So big picture, the RMA is really the last tool that we don't have in our toolbox, or didn't have in our toolbox as a community. Okay. When it comes to dealing with congestion, dealing with traffic issues. I think it was a great idea and a great plan that was put forth by some community leaders in 2016, 2017 to start to say, hey, should we consider this RMA model? Okay. There was broad support from both cities, Bryan College Station, the county, Texas A&M, the system, TxDOT, to do this, to create an RMA. And so there's a long process that I won't bore you with to get to actually having an RMA standing up. But that process was undertaken, and we got here today. And so then the next thing was, okay, well, what are we going to do? What kind of projects are we interested in? So we had, over the last probably 14, 15 months, have had numerous meetings with City of Bryan, City of College Station, local groups, the county, Texas A&M, TxDOT, to say, okay, what are some projects that the RMA can actually play a part in helping relieve congestion, helping mobility in the area? Because what we didn't want to be was just another, political organization, right? Or government organization, I should say, that's just there with, without any real purpose.
Like duplication.
Exactly. Okay. And so what we did is we went and had all these meetings and kind of came up with what we felt like was a consensus for some projects that we not only that would be valuable to the community, but were projects that the RMA could actually undertake. Okay. We took those back around to that same group, got, again, consensus that, okay, yes, these projects are some projects that would be great for the RMA. And so what they are, we kind of broke them down into, call it a near-term, an intermediate term, and a long-term project. The near-term project is the intersection of Arrington Road, Greens Prairie, and William Fitch in South College Station. Okay. So South College Station has been the fastest growing part of the county for some time now. Right. And there are a number of, call them traffic choke points in that area, none more than that intersection where those 3-4 roads come together.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, actually. I was just down there, and you probably live nearby, but it's just, I don't know. There's a little bit of absurdity there. So.
There is, I don't know exactly how it came to be where that happened that way, but it did, and it's what we're dealing with. Gotcha. The nice thing is about that intersection is that we can really do some improvements to that intersection without doing what's called a grade separated interchange, where you've got an overpass and an underpass. I got you. So that's our intermediate term project, alleviating some congestion at that intersection. That's our short term. The intermediate term project is out around the Rellis campus at Highway 21 and 47 and kind of the northwest part of the county. I would tell your viewers and your listeners, if you haven't been out to just driven by Rellis in the last 5-7 years, take a look. It doesn't look anything like it used to.
Right.
With that comes additional traffic, additional congestion. That's a gateway of our community on the west side of Bryan.
Yeah.
And so we felt like it was important to look at, in the intermediate term, how can we make sure that folks can get into and out of not just the Rellis campus, but Bryan and College Station coming from the west.
Right. Okay. Got it. And then longer term, what else are you working on?
Yeah, the longer term project that we've identified is what we call the Inner East Loop.
Okay.
And quickly, I'll try to describe it. But if you're interested in, you can Google the Brazos County Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, 2050 plan. And on the 2050 plan, you'll see a purple line that kind of completes what would be the 2818 loop around town. It does include William Fitch. So starting on the south part of the county at William Fitch and Highway 30, going up along the eastern edge of the county and reconnecting to Highway 6 at 2818 on the north end near the Texas Triangle Industrial Park is what we call the Inner East Loop or East Inner Loop. Right now, that's just a line on a piece of paper.
Right.
But as the community continues to grow, I think it's going to be important for us to find another north-south corridor to move traffic and to move people. And then potentially to open up, new areas for folks to move. So again, our longer term project is that people ask me a lot of times, how long is long term? I would anticipate that, that's a 5 to 10 year before we really have, a real route identified and we've done some design and some environmental. So, one thing I've learned about transportation planning is that long term is really long term.
Right.
Most roads take 20 years plus from the time they're conceived until the time that they're actually driving on lanes.
Gotcha.
So long term can be really long term.
All right, let's talk about the trickier subject. How are you going to pay for all of that? Is it straight TxDOT funds that you're helping to manage, or how do you plan to do those?
So right now on the November ballot, there is a proposition on the county ballot called Proposition B. Proposition B would provide for a $10 per vehicle registration fee to go towards funding projects for the RMA.
Okay.
So right now, if you go get your vehicle registered, it's probably about $70 to get it registered, which is pretty low from a national standpoint. If Proposition B passes, it would be an $80 registration on motor vehicles.
Okay.
A question I get asked a lot is what all is going to be subject to this deal, because we're a community that still has a rather large agricultural economy. And so farm trailers are the question we get a lot.
Okay, like the bigger farmer that has 30 trailers,
exactly.
Whatever.
Am I going to have to pay $10 a year for every one of these trailers?
What's the answer?
The answer is no.
Okay.
And so in the referendum language, we specifically made sure that it says the vehicle registration fee would be subject to vehicles that already pay the county's road and bridge fee, which doesn't include things like farm trailers, token trailers, specialty plates, a lot of things that you don't know exist unless you have a lot of them. But that's a big question that we get. So that would give the RMA a budget of about $1.5 million a year, which in transportation terms is not that much.
Right.
And this is the best part. And so if you want to stop listening after this part, watching after this part, this is the best part. The way TxDOT works is they have to let a certain number of dollars every month based on their budget to projects across the state.
Gotcha.
And they also require a certain level of readiness for them to let a project. So let's say you
what do you mean, let a project?
So let a project, that means the money's budgeted.
Okay.
And we're going to let it, we're going to send that money to Dallas,
Okay.
for instance, to the Dallas district, because they've got a project that we have budgeted for,
Right.
and we're going to send that money. Well, let's say Dallas isn't ready. TxDOT cannot say, all right, Dallas, understand you guys didn't make it. We'll wait till next month and we'll give it to you next month. That's not the way they work. The way they work is we've got to give this money to somebody. And so they start to look around the state for projects that are ready. And if the RMA can take the lead on design and preparing for these projects, this happens all the time where TxDOT turns around and says, who's got a project that's ready? And if we can raise our hand and say we're ready, that's how we can move things forward much more quickly. And so that's the impact that the RMA can have, not necessarily taking the budget, taking the funds that the RMA has and spending them on building the road. It's taking the funds, spending them on preparing the project, designing the project until somebody, TxDOT or the federal infrastructure bill or other monies that show up for projects that are ready. So that's the most powerful tool that the RMA has is getting projects on the shelf ready to go, so that when money comes along, we can raise our hand in Brazos County and say, hey, Brazos County has helped itself. Why don't you guys help us a little bit more? And it happens all the time. There's there's stories from RMAs across the state where this very thing has happened, when they can leverage a small amount to a very large amount just by being ready.
So that's what you see as like the primary responsibility of the RMA is, I work for a nonprofit, and so we have to pay grant writers to have these grants ready to go when the application window opens. I think what you're saying is that effectively that's a big thing that the RMA does, but with TxDOT and with projects rather than grants.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. So we're going to be in the business of the RMAs are in the business of the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization plans. The RMA is in the business of implementing, and that implementation usually goes to the point of some sort of design, whether we're hiring the firm that designs the road. We can absolutely spend the money on bringing out construction crews and building the road. But more likely than not, those dollars are coming from TxDOT or federal transportation dollars or something like that. Yeah,
because $1 million and change that you're talking about here, how many feet of a major connector would that actually be?
Not many. Yeah. If you understand, these projects, like I said earlier, they take a really long time. Yeah. And they're expensive.
Right.
So, $1.5 million a year doesn't sound like a ton of money when you're talking about actually implementing projects, but when you can take that and leverage it through the process that I just mentioned, it really can make a huge difference.
All right, so here's the big question in response to some of the things that you've said that I've heard several people throughout the county ask or talk about, and it's this. Sure, the $10 a year is not a huge deal. The $1 million that it raised, all of this makes a lot of sense to people, I think. What the concern that I have heard sometimes is not the issue of right now what y'all are doing, but that latent authority to be able to, in the future, do things like toll roads, do things like, other projects that may be quite a bit more controversial. How would you respond to that? Because I know you and I have talked off camera that you really don't have an interest in toll roads, and this being a toll road RMA. But can you talk a little more about some of those concerns and how you'd respond?
Yeah, sure. To that? I'll address the toll road one first, because that's the question that we probably get asked the most.
Right.
Because there are some RMAs in the state of Texas who are toll road authorities. There's been zero discussion. There's zero plan. There's zero vision for any toll roads in Brazos County. Mm-hmm. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is that we have heard from the community that that's not something that folks are interested in. The second is that none of the transportation issues that currently face Brazos County, in my opinion, could be resolved with a toll road. So it's we've got a number of problems, but I really feel like toll roads is a solution to a problem we don't have. The third is that there is not only is there no political will in Brazos County at this point on the RMA, there's no political will in Austin, and toll roads have been have kind of fallen out of favor in Austin for a number of reasons.
Sure.
And so it doesn't really make any sense for us to pursue that, knowing that if we did. Mm-hmm. we would be told, no, this isn't something that we're going to do. But
can you pursue it? Does the legislation that establishes your RMA allow you to
pursue a toll road
in the future?
Yeah, I think it probably would. I don't know for sure. I don't know that if it's explicit or not.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that from the very beginning, of this RMA, that has been a conversation that has not come up. It's not been something that we've talked about. I tell people all the time, the only people talking about toll roads are the people who are saying we don't want toll roads.
Sure.
And so I agree. I don't think it's a solution to a problem that we have.
Okay. So, but you see the point. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Is that you could see how some people could be a little bit wary of funding, the RMA in the way that's proposed on the proposition, knowing that there's a chance in the future that you could, you might be gone. You only serve 4 years, or you can renew.
They're 2-year terms that can be renewed.
Okay, but yeah, that let's say 20 years from now, you've got. You're not there anymore, let's say, and everybody who's on the board is gone. There's a whole new setup there, a whole new people who then say, okay, now we're going to do a toll road. So is that something that y'all as a authority have kind of talked about and thought about as far as how could you make the people, less wary of that outcome? Is there anything you can do?
Yeah, so I guess one way I'll answer that is that, I think it will be, I think the RMA is obviously, I think it's a great model. I think it's a great tool. And I do believe that it's probably one of the best things that we can do for ourselves in the future. I kind of harken back to my time on city council and where I learned that it's really hard to make everybody happy today.
Yeah.
And so I'm not even going to try to make everybody happy in 20 years.
Sure. Sure.
I'll also say 20 years ago, toll roads were seen broadly as a great tool to help transportation and to move things along and decrease congestion. That has changed. That's changed for a number of reasons. And so I don't know what the world looks like in 20 years. I don't know what Brazos County looks like in 20 years. Mm-hmm. I know that we have grown immensely in the last 20 years.
Yeah. And
over the last 40 years, our congestion has increased by 5%, a little over 5% per year, every year. So
is that kind of par for the course in Texas cities, or is that worse?
We have been aside from some big, rapidly growing suburbs that are, we have been one of the fastest growing communities in the state. And
really?
We currently have in terms of ridership, we've got the 7th most transit riders in the state.
Really? Because of the university.
Of Texas A&M University.
Okay.
Where we are, we're not, when you look at congestion compared to Austin or Houston or Dallas, we're not those places. And I think I'd say a lot of people live here because we're not those places, and we don't want to become those places.
Right.
We're dealing now with a lot of the issues that Austin was dealing with 25, 30 years ago, as we've kind of moved from a rural, community to we're really becoming more of an urban county. Mm-hmm. And so if we do the same thing that we've always done, we should expect the same results. We should expect traffic to continue to getting worse at 5% or more a year, into perpetuity. What I think the RMA is attempting to do is to say, hey, let's do something different and let's help ourselves a little bit more.
Okay.
So that was a long-winded way of saying, I don't know what we're going to look like in 20 years, but I hope that the RMA can have a part in ensuring that we have that we've got less congestion, that we've got better mobility, and that people are able to move around and enjoy the quality of life that we've come to know here, and also to be able to recruit new people to come to town, whether that's workers or businesses or whatever it may be.
So how can people, if they want to research this themselves about the RMA, about some of the issues and projects that we've been talking about today, how can they best get that information?
Yeah, you bet. So all of this information is on the RMA website. It's bcrma.org.
Okay.
We've got a lot of information about the vision, our strategic plan for the RMA is there. The maps that I mentioned are linked there. A lot of there's a presentation that we've kind of been given around the community for the last year or so. That's available there. There's a lot of information there. There's an email there that goes ultimately straight to me.
Gotcha.
And so I'm happy to answer questions that folks have. And my job right now is not to advocate one way or the other on anything, but it's to inform folks on this is what the RMA is, this is what the RMA can do, this is what it can't do.
Okay.
And I truly believe that the RMA is an excellent way for us to take some control of our destiny as far as transportation and mobility are concerned going in the future.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Again, this has been Barry Moore with the RMA. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.